So shall we begin? We good? Yeah. Hi everyone, and I know most of you in person, so that's good to be in a room with familiar people. So I'm Abhinav Puri for the sake of the recording, and I'm the product manager at SUSE, driving our products targeted at the retail industry, specifically SUSE Manager for Retail and SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service. Before I get into this, let me just put one thing out there, that I don't believe in the concept of the retail apocalypse or whatever term that's been coined in the last few years, talking about the doom of this industry in any which way. I believe the industry is transforming. I believe the industry is changing, in a good way. There's a lot of activity happening, and I believe SUSE is positioned in a very good way with the set of product portfolio that we have to actually help retailers and actually partner with retailers to solve their challenges and to help them in their transformation journey. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, on how SUSE can be a strong partner to the retailers in their digital transformation journey. Now, retail is a sector that each one of us interacts with on a day-to-day basis in some form or the other. Whether it is shopping for groceries or clothing, accessories, you name it. That's one sector that we interface with on a daily basis in some way or the other. So any innovation that happens around in this vertical has the potential to impact our day-to-day lives. And there's a lot of innovation happening, especially with the likes of the online native retailers coming into the game, your likes of Amazon, your JD.com, your Alibaba. They've completely changed the rules of the game. They've completely changed the way a shopper expects to interface with a retailer. It has resulted in an environment wherein retailers need to provide similar shopping behaviors or similar shopping experiences to their customers. And for that, the retailers need to start looking into what is the IT infrastructure that they have that will enable those experiences. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, on how SUSE can support retailers in enabling those experiences for their customers. But before I get into specifics, let me just walk you guys through a scenario which has become pretty commonplace today. At least from a shopper's perspective, the expectation is that scenarios like these are commonplace. Different retailers might be at different stages in their journey, to enable scenarios like this. So let me get into it. Now imagine it's Tuesday 2 p.m., although it's not, but just let your imaginations run wild. So it's Tuesday 2 p.m. You have a flight to catch at 6 in the evening because you're attending a friend's birthday party on the next day at 6 in the evening. Now, you're sitting in your home, you're scrolling through your favorite retailer's mobile app, and you come across these pair of shoes. You really like them. You think they'd go pretty well with the outfit you're planning to wear the next day. But you don't have the time to actually go down to the store, see whether that item is available, make the purchase, come back, drive down to the airport, catch your flight. So what you'd rather want is that, can I get this delivered as fast as possible? So which application, mobile app today, does not request for your location data? There's so much that apps can do with that location data. So this specific retail app prompts you about the stores in your vicinity. What is the inventory level of the shoe you're looking at in which specific store? What sizes it's available in? What colors are it's available in? It also prompts you on what time those shoes can be delivered to your address based on the mode of delivery you select. Good, you're happy. So you select an express delivery mode for the product to be delivered to you, let's say at 4 in the evening, and you make the purchase with a single click within the mobile app. How is it possible? Because you're sharing your credit card information with the retail app itself. So purchase is just one click away. Now it's 4 in the evening, you get your product, your shoes delivered to your house, you pack them, you drive down to the airport, you catch your flight, and you're off to another city. Perfect, good. So far, so good. Next day, you're in your hotel, it's the morning, and you're trying out what you'd like to wear or what you've got to wear for the event in the evening. And you're also trying out the shoes you got delivered the day before. Remember, you're in a different city. You like the shoes, but they're actually one size smaller than the size you usually wear. So you would want the same shoes in the same color, but in a size that's bigger than the one you've actually ended up ordering. You trust your retailer. You fire up the mobile app. Remember, it has access to your location data. It again prompts you on which stores in your vicinity has what inventory levels of those specific shoes that you're looking at, what are the sizes that are available, what are the colors that are available. And well, there is the size that you're looking at in a store near you in the different city that you're in now. But this time you decide that, I'd rather go to the store and pick up my item myself so that I'd also get a chance to actually try out the size. You don't want to keep doing this activity again and again. So you make that within the app, you press a button, and the return and replacement workflow is initiated, and you get a return and replacement confirmation code. You take that confirmation code, you drive down to the retail store, that was prompted in the app. You go to the pickup counter, you show that confirmation code. The store executive scans that confirmation code with a mobile handheld device. With that scan, that individual knows which product you're looking to pick up, goes back to the back room, gets your shoes, hands them over to you. And the shoes, by the way, were already pre-arranged in the rack in the back room because, well, efficiencies. So you're happy, that's great. So you decide to go, within the store and just try on these shoes before you head back to your hotel. Within this period, in the meanwhile, the same store executive gets a prompt or a notification on the mobile handheld device that this specific type of tie goes really well or sells really well with this specific type of shoes. So the store executive goes back, fetches that tie, brings it to you. You really like the tie. You were not even planning to buy the tie or wearing a tie for the event in the evening, but you end up buying it because it's really good. There's a lot of workflows that are running behind the scenes to actually enable such kind of upsell opportunities. So you are happy, you attend the event in the evening. The retailer is happy because the retailer managed to effect an upsell, which in a standard scenario may not have been possible. And imagine all of that happening in a different store, in a different city from the one you actually initiated your purchase in. So that's the kind of scenario that's happening these days. But before, let's just back up a bit. So this may seem like a very obvious thing to do for any retailer in today's day and age, enabling such experiences which are seamless across channels. But it's not an easy problem to solve. It's a complex problem with a lot of moving parts. A lot of things need to be solved. The whole face of retail is changing. Long gone are the days, when as a shopper, you and I would have standalone experiences with different channels in a retail environment. No shopper thinks like that anymore. If I'm a shopper, the expectation is that I look at a retailer as a single entity, irrespective of the channel that I'm interacting with. That could be mobile, that could be an online website, that could be the physical store in itself. But for a shopper, the retailer is one single entity, irrespective of the channel. And that results in an environment wherein the retailer needs to enable those sort of experiences across the channel, because the shopper is expecting that this experience of shopping, the shopping journey, is seamless across those channels, because that's the experience that the shopper has gotten used to by interfacing or interacting with those online retailers. And this brings us in a scenario where traditional brick and mortar retailers, are in a scenario wherein they want to retain a customer's loyalty who's expecting extreme comfort in the interactions they have with a retailer. They're expecting absolutely frictionless experiences across channel. They're expecting to go through and complete their shopping journey from, in the most fast and convenient way that's possible. The expectation is that they initiate a journey in channel X and finish the journey in channel Y and pick up the transaction from the same point in channel Y at which they left in channel X. Shoppers also may not explicitly say it out loud, but they have gotten attuned to hyper-personalizations in product recommendations, because that's what they are experiencing with the online native retailers, because they're providing those experiences. So they actually expect that, there's contextualized product recommendations even when they interface with a traditional physical brick and mortar retailer. At the same time, they expect absolute control over their interactions with the different touch points from a retail environment. They expect to be able to alter their shopping journey in the manner they want, at the point they want. This is an era of experiences, holistic shopping experiences. And if a retailer, a traditional retailer, is not able to provide such seamless experiences, it ends up losing its business. So just to be able to survive, and not just survive, but thrive in this business, a traditional retailer needs to provide such experiences to their shoppers. Like I said, while it may seem like the most obvious thing to do, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a complex problem with a lot of moving parts. In fact, it's not even just one problem. There are a multitude of problems that need to be solved to enable shopper journeys like these. And each of those problems impact different processes across a retailer's value chain. So if I am a retailer, I need to think that how am I going to integrate my back-end processes, whether that's in the area of logistics, supply chain management, or merchandising, strategy and planning, store operations, digital asset management. How do I integrate all of those processes such that I have a unified view of the customer, I have a unified view of the customer data, I have a unified view of inventory across those different channels, which I will then use to actually deliver such seamless experiences. Also, if I'm a retailer, I need to start thinking on how am I going to integrate all of these different touch points? How am I going to capture shopper behavior and shopper data across all of these different touch points and channels? What am I going to do with that captured behavior? How am I going to analyze that behavior? So it's important because how am I going to provide those personalized recommendations? What sort of applications do I need to actually enable that? Also, I need to start thinking on how am I going to scale my resources, computing resources dynamically, because retail environments, face variance in compute needs depending on what time of the year it is. Whether it's a rainy day, or it's a sunny day, or it's a special event like a Black Friday, or it's a Christmas period. So how am I going to scale my resources to address those seasonal variances, and what do I need to do to upgrade my back-end IT infrastructure? And all of that while considering all the challenges that I as a retailer face. So because when we talk about retail environments, we talk about environments that are distributed. We talk about environments that are spread across geographically diverse locations. We talk about store infrastructure across those geographically diverse locations, whether it's hardware or software within the store that needs to be managed throughout that life cycle. Then there are certain services that always need to be on. For example, the e-commerce platform, the website where I as a shopper will purchase from that specific retailer. Can a retailer allow that during the shopping journey, or during the process of actually making the purchase, the website goes down? That's just not acceptable. So services like these need to be on highly available platforms that ensure uptime of a near 100%. Network infrastructure is a challenge. Most retailers are using applications that are monolithic legacy applications that in some cases limit their agility to respond to competitive pressures, to actually be fast in making those developments, bringing those developments to market that could actually capitalize on the current requirements or the current market trends. Seasonal variance in compute needs, I talked about that already. And all of these challenges within the additional challenge of tight budgets and margins. Budgets are limited, net profit margins are not increasing and growing exponentially year on year. So all of that needs to be considered. And different retailers may look at different ways to solve these problems. Can retailers throw in a lot of money at the problem and actually solve it? Maybe yes, maybe no. Different retailers will have different answers to this. Different retailers may have different sets of problems altogether. But in general, what I believe all retailers need to do, and what they would agree on, is that they need platforms that are agile. They need platforms that are scalable, highly available, and manageable. That's what they need. They also need a robust network infrastructure to manage that flow of data between the store and a data center. And also a good network infrastructure within that store. I talked about data. So there's a lot of data that's being generated in a retail environment, or in a traditional retail environment, let's say. Whether it's transactional data at the POS, or it's data that is being generated by line of business operations, or it's the data that's being generated by customer footprint on their online website, or data being generated through the video feed of surveillance cameras, or more modern use cases where you're implementing the smart shelves in the store, or are going to implement the smart shelves in the future, or the different IoT devices, the sensors. There's so much data that is being generated. You may not use all of that. You may discard a lot of that data, but whatever is left of it, you also need to identify how are you going to store that data? Where are you going to store that data? At the same time, a lot of data is being generated in the store, and to be able to deliver those personalized recommendations, you need to analyze that data. And to be able to deliver those personalized recommendations in near real time, you need to ensure that a lot of compute is available within the store environment. And not all of that data could then be pushed back to a central data center. So you might need to start looking at edge computing use cases. How can that be beneficial to your environment? At the same time, how can, what are the advantages of using the cloud infrastructure, whether it's public cloud or private cloud environments? How can you as a retailer utilize the benefits that these bring to the table, whether you follow a single cloud strategy or you follow a hybrid or a multi-cloud strategy? So you need to think of all of these elements. But, and there's always a but, it's not like I said, that retail margins are growing year on year. Retail margins, net profit margins are under constant pressure. We're talking about tight margins. So it's not like, as you guys as retailers can throw a lot of money on it and solve it in any way possible. So from a retailer's perspective, any spending that goes on in an IT environment needs to maximize the value that you're getting out of that spend. And this is exactly where I believe that it's an ideal playground for software-defined solutions based on open source technologies. Because these help you in bringing down the total costs of ownership. Whether it's about the upfront cost that you incur in deploying that solution, or it's about the long-term operating expenses that you incur while using that solution. And this is where SUSE comes into play. So there are thousands of open source projects out there. And then it is important to understand which of those projects will form the key of the future IT infrastructure. Then how are you going to bring those projects as products into the market which will satisfy the needs of the customers? And there are a lot of that. And that's where SUSE is going to help out the retailers. So as SUSE, we look at the world of open source in two key areas, the software-defined infrastructure and the application delivery areas. And we have products within each of those spheres that can help solve challenges of different customer environments, including retail environments. Now, I'm not going to get into details of all of these products, but I'm going to talk about how different products solve different use cases. And I'll get into details of two of these products specifically. But in general, when we look at a software-defined infrastructure, we are looking at a consistent platform from your store, from what's running on your point of service hardware to what's running on your edge devices to your data center, to your cloud environment. And from SUSE's perspective, that we look at delivering a resilient, secure platform across that environment, which enterprise business applications need and expect. And for that, we have what we offer, a multimodal operating system, a SUSE Linux Enterprise, which is a single source code across that runs on your point of service hardware or ARM-based devices, which could be running on the edge, or within your larger servers in your data center. We also offer an infrastructure management tool that is a unified tool that helps you manage that entire infrastructure across that chain. At the same time, we offer solutions for your storage needs. We offer solutions for your on-demand compute needs, for your private cloud infrastructure needs, and that's about the software-defined infrastructure. And more recently, we've also started delving into the container and the application delivery space, and that's where we have positioned the SUSE Container as a Service platform and the SUSE Cloud Application platform. And like I said, I'll get into how each of these products solve certain specific use cases in the upcoming slides. But together, they solve a lot of retail use cases. But we don't do it alone. And we do understand that there is an extent to which SUSE products can benefit a retail environment. And a lot of those use cases will be solved by applications running on top of our infrastructure. And that is where our partner ecosystem comes into play. So the expectation is that SUSE's products, along with the partner ecosystem, will form a comprehensive solution to deliver solutions to end-to-end use cases that are plaguing retailers across their value chain. Now, that being said, I do understand that different retailers would be at a different stage in their transformation journey. And to achieve their strategic goal from where they are today, they'd be different, the gap to achieve that goal will be different for different retailers. So the way they'll use different products, and what kind of product they will use will also naturally be different. So in the following slides, like I said, I'll briefly mention on how different SUSE products solves or address different use cases. And I'll get into the details of 2 of those products in a later section. So let's get started. Now I'll start with 2 of our products that have been customized and tailored for retail environments. SUSE Manager for Retail and SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, or we like to call it SLEPOS. Now SUSE Manager for Retail is a unified infrastructure management tool that manages your Linux-based IT infrastructure, whether it's running in a store environment or your traditional data center environment or your public cloud or private cloud environment infrastructure. SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, or SLEPOS like we call it, is the operating system that is customized to run on your point of service hardware, whether that's your self-checkout devices, your traditional cash registers, your thin clients and the likes. And I'll get into the details of these 2 products in the later section. But moving on to what other products we have and what use cases they are solving. So it's a widely known fact that AI-based applications will have the most disruptive impact on the retail sector. And I mean disruptive in the most positive sense of the word that's possible. So the expectation is that using or deploying AI-based applications will enable or generate incremental revenues for retailers depending on which part of the value chain they are addressing. So whether it's helping retailers in optimizing their inventory, optimizing their channel assortment, optimizing their product pricing, their promotional strategies. There are different sets of applications provided by a plethora of vendors out there that address those different use cases. But what's common among all those applications? All of these applications need a high-performing parallel computing environment, to run on. And that is where SUSE Linux Enterprise high-performance computing as a product comes into play. Next up, most retail environments will be using some sort of SAP application. They will be using it somewhere in their overall IT infrastructure, whether it's SAP ERP, CRM, or SCM, or it's your HANA or S4 HANA, they will be using some application from the SAP suite. And SUSE Linux Enterprise for SAP applications is actually custom made to ensure that there is fast deployment and reduced downtime of your SAP landscape. So, and that's the go-to infrastructure element to run your SAP landscape on. Moving on. Like I said, that data is growing exponentially in a retail environment. Data from all sorts of sources, whether it's your transactional data at the point of service, your data generated in line of business operations, your data generated from online traffic of customers on your website, your data that's being generated from the video feed in surveillance cameras, or your data being generated through all those sensors that you plan, or smart shelves that you plan to install in your stores. What are you going to do with that data? How are you going to store that data? Are you going to use expensive proprietary software running on expensive proprietary hardware for your storage needs? Or you could rather go for commodity hardware and run an intelligent software-defined storage solution, which is what SUSE Enterprise Storage offers you. Like I said, also, that there is seasonal variance in compute needs. So you would look for on-demand access to compute resources, which are completely in your control. And that is, and for that, you'd like to set up a private cloud infrastructure environment, something that SUSE OpenStack Cloud can help you with. And that's not it. Let me explain this with an example now. So think of a fashion retailer. And there is a new fashion fad. Some celebrity has worn a specific type of clothing, and suddenly it's become the fad. So for a fashion retailer, especially for a fast fashion retailer, it becomes imperative to bring that style into their stores. Now, there's a whole lot of processes that go into place actually so that they are able to physically bring that item of clothing, in the store. So there's a lot of things that they need to optimize on that end to actually bring the product to the shelf. But in parallel, they also need to ensure that they're optimizing their promotional campaigns, they're optimizing their pricing strategy, they're optimizing the channel assortment, inventories, what's going on where, for ensuring that they're leveraging this fad. Even if they bring the product to market, they're able to leverage it in the best possible way. And the best way to do that is, if your applications that you are actually deploying are based on a container or a microservices-based architecture, and that is an area where SUSE's CaaS platform and the SUSE Cloud Application Platform come into play. Now, like I said, that I would get into the details of two of these products which are custom made for retail environments. And one of them is SUSE Manager for Retail. So when we look at a retail environment, we look at an infrastructure that's dispersed across geographically diverse locations. We're talking about an infrastructure wherein stores have a whole variety of hardware. They might have different sorts of applications running on the servers for the POS or your network and so on and so forth. So it's a dispersed environment. And retailers need to manage all of that environment, not just the store environment. They will also be naturally managing their infrastructure that's running in their traditional data center, because that also needs to be managed. And it's likely, or it's possible, that they're using different sets of tools to solve those different sets of needs, or they're writing their own custom scripts to manage that infrastructure that's in the data center or that's in the store. That's where SUSE Manager for Retail actually comes into play. It's a unified tool, like I said. So whether your Linux-based infrastructure is running in your store or it's running in your data center, SUSE Manager for Retail can manage that Linux-based environment throughout its entire life cycle. So whether it is about provisioning bare metal or virtual guests, or it's about managing software packages across that environment, or patching that entire environment, or configuring it as you need, or managing the hardware or software asset inventory across your store and your data center environment, Manager for Retail can do that for you. That's a single tool that helps you do that. That's not all. What it can also do is help you build images that you'll be running on your point of service hardware, whether those images are running on your standard cash registers or self-checkout devices, or thin clients and so on and so forth. And it also helps you deploy those images across all those geographically diverse locations. And once that infrastructure is set, both the store and naturally your traditional data center, you can actually ensure compliance to current patch levels, ensure that your entire infrastructure is secure, and that's also something that Manager for Retail helps you do. And from a business perspective, what are the advantages that a line of business manager stands to gain from Manager for Retail? So, like I said, it's a single tool that manages all of your enterprise Linux infrastructure. One tool. It optimizes your operations. So if I'm an operations guy, if I'm in the IT ops team, instead of managing multiple tools and expensing or spending money on training people to use different tools, it's better to spend money once, train people to use one tool that helps you manage your entire environment, reduces your costs, optimizes your operations. We also understand that infrastructure is varied across your environment. We understand that there are different hardware architectures that you may be deploying for different hardware. You may be using virtualized, non-virtualized workloads and the likes. So there's a lot of complexity that you need to manage. And having a single view of all of that complexity and what you are running, or in what store or on what device, having a single view of that reduces that complexity and the challenges and the headaches that come alongside it. And yeah, I talked about how the tool helps you also in ensuring compliance. So just to reiterate the point, and I like to say it again and again just to drive the point home, that it's one tool. It's a unified tool for your infrastructure management need, from the store to the core to the cloud. That's what we bring to you with SUSE Manager for Retail. Now, it has not always been the case that SUSE Manager for Retail has been our offering in this market. This has evolved over the years. So for customers who are already using SUSE's offering in the retail market, they'd be used to a product called SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, which I mentioned earlier, called SleepOS. So until recently, SleepOS was our core offering in this market, which we then evolved into SUSE Manager for Retail. Now, what do I mean by that? Before that, for those who are not aware of SleepOS, let me just give a brief primer on what this product was. So SleepOS was a basic image management tool that had 3 separate components. There was your admin server. Think of it as your central repository for your configuration information of your entire network. Then there were branch servers within every store. Think of it as your local repository for the store, for your configuration information. It could also be configured to provide your network services necessary in a store environment. And finally, there were SleepOS clients, which was the OS images that you would run on your point of service hardware. So this is what this 3-tiered layered stack of SleepOS was like. This evolved into what we are now calling SUSE Manager for Retail. So in a nutshell, what we did was we used the features, or we picked the features from SleepOS's server-side components, the admin and the branch servers, what they could do, what they could offer, and added those features into SUSE Manager, which still is and was at that time our core infrastructure management, systems management tool, and positioned that in the retail market as SUSE Manager for Retail at a different pricing structure that was more feasible for retail environments. The point of service hardware is still running SleepOS client images that you can now build with SUSE Manager, with a build host that you set up through SUSE Manager. So to illustrate this graphically, what we basically did was swapped the server-side components of SleepOS, added those functionalities into SUSE Manager, and came up with a similar 3-tiered stack for managing retail infrastructure called SUSE Manager for Retail. The point to note here is that SleepOS clients, the OS images for the endpoint devices, don't go away. They were part of the previous stack. You can now also build those client images with SUSE Manager for Retail, which would be running on your point of service hardware. So the idea here was that a lot of customers talk to us about their needs that they are anyways managing their infrastructure with some tool or with custom scripting. So why have 2 separate tools to do that? You have SleepOS for image management, and then you would have SUSE Manager for rest of lifecycle management of those workloads. So idea was to move away from a basic image management paradigm, which SleepOS offered, to a more comprehensive managed endpoint paradigm, which is what we offer with SUSE Manager for Retail. Now, that brings us to a natural question regarding what happens to SUSE Linux Enterprise Point of Service, the 3-tiered stack. What's the future? What's the future of this 3-tiered stack with the admin, branch, and clients? So the present is, before I talk about the future, that we are deprecating the admin and the branch server components of SleepOS going forward. So when I said SleepOS a year and a half or 2 years back, I could mean SleepOS admin server, I could mean SleepOS branch server, or I could mean SleepOS clients, depending on what I was referring to. But as of today, when I say SleepOS, I only mean, and that is all that we could mean, is SleepOS clients, the OS images running on your point of service hardware. Because other than SleepOS 11 SP3, which is still supported for your 3-tiered stack, no future generation of SleepOS will have the admin or branch server components, and SleepOS will be a client-only product. It will also be part of our retail solution, which is what I said is our solution now and going forward for this market, which is a combination of SUSE Manager for Retail for the server-side components and SUSE Linux Enterprise point of service clients, which are the OS images running on your point of service hardware. Now, a natural question here may be that we know what SUSE Manager is. So how is this different from SUSE Manager? What is the difference between Manager and Manager for Retail? So there is no difference technically. It's the same product. What we did was we used, or like I said, we added SleepOS's functionality into SUSE Manager, positioned that to the retail market at a different pricing structure, which we felt was more compatible for retail environments. So that is basically what the difference between SUSE Manager for Retail and SUSE Manager is. Positioning and how you configure it to be tailored in retail environments, and what is the pricing structure like that you're going to use. It's going to be different for Manager and different for Manager for Retail. You could build SleepOS client images with Manager for Retail as well. Now, that being said, I would also briefly like to highlight some of the deployment scenarios which we see more likely in our customer environments. The number one scenario is wherein SUSE Manager for Retail is deployed to manage store environments only, and each of those stores are running SleepOS clients only. In that scenario, you'll have a SUSE Manager server in the central location, a build server that will be basically a server or a Kiwi build host to build your endpoint client images. Then each of those stores will be running a Manager for Retail branch server, and the endpoint devices will be running SleepOS clients. The Manager for Retail branch server offering or the subscription is only valid so long as your endpoint client is running a SleepOS image with a SleepOS subscription. The other scenario is actually the scenario that we position SUSE Manager for Retail for, is a single unified tool to manage your entire infrastructure. So your store environment is similar to scenario 1, and your distributed locations will be, you're using, think of it as you're using SUSE Manager to manage some SLES servers or SUSE Linux Enterprise servers in different environments, and you have a proxy, that's interfacing your SUSE Manager server to different combinations of those managed instances. So in that case, the subscription set that you'll be using for the store setup will be similar to scenario 1, wherein you will need a SUSE Manager for Retail branch server subscription that's only and only valid if your devices being managed are SleepOS clients. And for any other distributed locations, you'll be going for a SUSE Manager proxy subscriptions, and naturally, you'll be going for the necessary subscription for whatever managed instance that is, alongside lifecycle management for each of those managed instances. That is something you do not need to additionally opt in for if you're using the SUSE Manager for Retail branch server subscription. Scenario 3 is wherein SUSE Manager for Retail is again only being used to manage a distributed store environment, but for some reason you're running general purpose server workloads which are in the store, which do not really have much to do or much to contribute to your store related activities, and you're doing that for some reason. In that case, you can no longer opt for a Manager for Retail branch server subscription. You can definitely configure the SUSE Manager proxy to provide the necessary services as your retail branch, but from a subscription standpoint, you'll have to go in for a Manager proxy subscription, and then you'd also have to go in for management subscriptions or lifecycle management subscription for every non-SleepOS managed instance in the store. So that's relevant. Another scenario, scenario 4, is something that we are yet to fully deliver and fully enable, is completely serverless environments. Wherein a store does not, so think of a store with just 1 or 2 cash registers, and for whatever reason, you as a retailer do not wish to deploy a server in that environment or a store server in that environment, and just need to manage your endpoint cash registers or point of service hardware accordingly. And that's something that we're working on, and we'll be delivering enablement for managing a completely serverless, a supported management of completely serverless stores going forward. That brings me to, Yeah, we have time. So that brings me to what can we expect with the product going forward, and what can we expect with the set of products going forward. So here, I'd like to start with the bottom half of this slide, which talks about SleepOS clients. So one thing that I'd like to highlight here and mention here is that SleepOS clients have a different support lifecycle as compared to our standard SLES support lifecycle. And also that we do not support every service pack of SLES on the point of service for the SleepOS clients. So we decide on supporting a specific SLES service pack as a POS client based on the coverage of hardware, for example, that we can support or that we can enable with a particular service pack. So as of today, the SleepOS clients that we are supporting for an extended period are SleepOS 12 SP3 clients and SleepOS 12 SP4 clients, which could then be built and deployed using SUSE Manager for Retail 3.2. That's our currently supported version in the market as of today. Our next release going forward in a few months from now, in the summer of 2019, is going to be SUSE Manager 4 and Manager for Retail 4. The retail-specific functionalities that we are looking to enable in Manager Retail 4, what I'd like to highlight here is, number one, we are looking at enabling offline operations in a store. Now, what do I mean by that? So one of the aspects that we are looking to enable is that if there is no network, if there's a network outage, between your store and your central location or whatever data center or cloud environment that you're using as your central location, your cash registers can still boot up. It's not like you have operational discontinuity in that regard. So that's something that we are going to enable. We are also looking into the possibility of enabling a couple of other scenarios, and these would not be delivered naturally by GA of this release, but we're looking to deliver in lifetime of the 4.0 release. And that is to ensure that you can also install and register those cache registers in the case of a network outage, as well as ensure that if you have a pre-scheduled patch run to patch in your point of service environment or your store environment, and then there's a network outage during that specific maintenance window, this patch run still follows on. Another thing that you'll see with the 4.0 release is we are adding, and this is also will be available within the lifetime of 4.0. We are trying to provide it by the GA, but let's see whether we make that, is functionality for basic virtual machine management. So your standard create, start, stop, migrate, storage, and all those basic features we are going to add. We're also going to ship and support your Prometheus and Grafana packages, so to enable so that you can set up your monitoring infrastructure. What we are not enabling with GA but expect in future releases is you can also set up your visualization dashboards accordingly, and within through SUSE Manager itself. So that's a highlight of 4.0 to begin with. Something that we're also doing on a core manager level is expanding the number of or the types of managed instances, managed endpoints that you can manage with SUSE Manager, and in effect with SUSE Manager for Retail. So we're adding management support for Ubuntu clients that would already be available with 3.2, but that's also something that you can look for with the 4.0 release. But however, having said that, for the store environments, we are not supporting managing Ubuntu clients on your POS devices with a SUSE Manager for Retail branch server subscription. So this is for your general traditional data center environments. So far as your store environments are concerned, what we are going to support is only scenarios wherein your point of service devices are running SleepOS as a client. And then there's a lot of activity that we are working on and we'll be enabling in future releases of these product sets. Just wanted to highlight some of the retailers that have been trusting SUSE in in their environment, and not necessarily SUSE Manager for Retail or Sleepos, but general SUSE, the SUSE portfolio, the products in our portfolio. So yeah, this is what I wanted to spend time on. Now, if there's anything I'd like you guys to, go back with, and I'd like you guys to remember, if there are two things that I'd like you to remember, then these are the two things that I would want you to go back with. Number one, what is SUSE offering for the retail market as of today? What is the solution that we're offering? We're offering a solution that is addressed from your operations teams to optimize your store operations, to optimize your data center operations, and that is a combination of SUSE Manager for Retail and SUSE Linux Enterprise point of service at the client devices. But is that what we are going to always offer in this market? No. We expect to evolve, and we want to evolve. I mentioned a while back that we have a portfolio of products that are suited to solve different needs that a retailer will have across their environment that goes beyond operations. And that is what we are looking to enable going forward, is a comprehensive end-to-end solution that will span SUSE products alongside products from our partner ecosystem that will solve those specific use cases that will enable retailers to deliver those frictionless customer experiences across those different channels that they're looking to deliver. And that is something that we're working on and we'd want to deliver and enable in going forward. That's my piece for the day, and thank you guys. I know it's the last session of the day, so thanks a lot for turning up, and I appreciate your time.